if you were to ask the average Christian what Paul has to say about hell, say, he or she would probably just give you some standard recitation of the theology of hell that he or she, without bothering to try to find it in the text, because, of course, it's not there in the text, as you no doubt know. Paul seems to have been utterly unaware of such a concept. And so you have to ask, what do we do with the language of Christ? And it's amazing how much of Christian tradition consists in presuming a meaning to Christ's words that is not explicitly there. When it comes to the language of exclusion from the kingdom, right, the Gospels use all sorts of metaphors, but they're not metaphors that obviously are meant systematically to unfold a real picture of anything, because most of them are metaphors of destruction. Mm-hmm. And this includes the language of the Gehenna, the valley of Hinnom, because he borrows the language of Isaiah 66, the worm never dies, the fire is not quenched, which, of course, there is a language of the destruction of rubbish and of carrion, worms that never stop eating until all the flesh is gone, fires that never stop burning until everything is consumed. But through a kind of weird metathesis of metaphorical intention based on later ideas about hell, suddenly the worm and the fire become images of unending torment rather than images of total destruction, which is the language. Mm-hmm. So, and then when Christ says, God who has the power to destroy body and soul in the Gehenna, immediately that is taken to be hyperbole. Well, it doesn't mean destroy, it means, by destroy we mean torture forever. Right? And then you look at the language of ovens, chaff being burned away. So there's a fire of, so there's some things being destroyed. Something. On the other hand, then there are other metaphors which are very different, which are about just exclusion, about being left outside and not allowed to come into the party, and having to grind one's teeth and moan because one didn't get any cake.
So the image of the party is good. So I know there are a lot of Christians who would say,
wait.
Okay.
No. I'm going through all the different images because I'm trying to make a point here. And then we impose on that image of exclusion a kind of finality consisting in eternal torment because we've assumed that already from other sources. Then there's the language of real imprisonment and torment. Except that whenever Christ uses that language, it comes with an end in view, a term in view. Is based on the idea of the debtor's prison. And, of course, I once heard an evangelical preacher say, well, of course, a debtor's prison is for life because you can't make any money. Obviously not knowing how debtor's prisons worked and not knowing that you and your family are still continuing business. You have to do it within the confines of prison. Or being tormented until the price is paid, and then getting out. This is a different sort of imagery. When you put all these things together, nowhere do you end up actually with the clear picture that became the sort of canonical mythopoetic imagery of the Christian imagination of Kingdom of Lucifer and eternal torment. Rather, what you have are very venerable, culturally specific images about punishment that may or may not be finite or final. And then you have one verse in Matthew 25 that can be translated in such a way as it seems to say what it's not clear that it says. At the end of that, how have you reached a point where this obvious melange of images, which is quite in keeping with the apocalyptic vocabulary of the time, and which, after all, is united to a proclamation of an imminent event within history. How does that become the traditional Christian picture? Well, it becomes, obviously, for reasons other than those in the text itself.